I'm Graham Waller. I am the founder of Ultralight Startups, and welcome to our panel on Twitter-based business models. We have here a very select crew of, I think, something that couldn't have possibly existed a year or two ago, which is founders of venture-funded, pure-play Twitter companies that Greg will be talking about and introducing in a moment. So the genesis of this panel is that Twitter, as we know, is the supernova, by far the most talked about topic in the world of technology and media and pop culture today. And everybody is on it, from Ashton Kutcher all the way to Larry King, as we know, having millions of followers. And Twitter itself is a fascinating topic. You know, how are they going to make money? I believe they haven't even made $1 of revenue yet. That is an interesting question. However, that's not the topic of the panel today. The topic of the panel today is there is a huge ecosystem that is growing up around Twitter and companies that are built on Twitter. And it's interesting that in the process of planning this event, I actually wrote a press release last Thursday, so that's a week ago, and I researched how many companies that there are built on Twitter, and I went to TechCrunch, a site within TechCrunch called Crunchbase that lists companies, startups, and tags them with various subject areas, and I found that there were at the time 162 companies listed in Crunchbase that were built on Twitter, primarily Twitter-based companies. When I went back this morning, this is 1 week later, and talked to these guys on the phone in preparation for our panel today, I went back to the same page, and there was 166 Twitter-based companies. So that just shows you how fast that space is evolving, and how many people are interested in it, and how many people are trying to figure out a way to monetize Twitter. Many ways to do that, and I hope that our panel here is going to educate us on that. So with that, I'm going to introduce our moderator, Greg. Pardon me. So Greg Gallant is CEO of Sawhorse Media, which runs a network of properties that make short content useful, including the Shorty Awards, Muck Rack, and Newspin. The Shorty Awards recognize the best producers of short-form content on Twitter based on votes from tens of thousands of Twitter users. Muck Rack makes it easy to follow what journalists are tweeting about. Newspin is a one-line music review site that allows anyone to give their opinion on an album in 140 characters or less. So he's a parallel Twitter entrepreneur. Greg also hosts Venture Voice, the leading podcast about entrepreneurship, and was named Entrepreneur of the Year by Suffolk Nassau Chamber of Commerce in 2003. So Greg is going to be moderating this panel and introducing our panelists today. Thank you very much, Greg.
Okay, thanks a lot, Graham. So, someone else before asked how many people are on Twitter. I think about half of you raised your hand. How many people here have made money off Twitter so far? All right, so one guy, and you said you made, how much again? 750 bucks?
We just done the 75 licenses at $10 a piece.
Okay, so that's pretty good. 750 bucks in 2 weeks. So when you're in Twitter, you just go to your settings page by going right to settings. Then, here's where you enter your name, your username, your email, time zone. If you scroll down to the bottom, you just go to the monetize my account option right here. You check it, and you're done. $1 for every person who follows you, multiplied by your tweets per day. So you can do the math pretty easily, and if any of you have over 100 followers, you can quit your job. And so that's it. Thanks for coming, guys. No, unfortunately, that's a little mock-up that we did. It's not real. That's usually just make my account private, not monetize my account. But anyhow, I'm just going to really quickly go through how I got into the Twitter world, and then like these guys talk about their businesses on Twitter, and then we'll really quickly get to questions so we can start talking about both how do you build businesses on Twitter, and also for your businesses that aren't directly Twitter related, how can Twitter help your business? So I was on Twitter for a while. I didn't really get it. I signed up for it early. This is how I got my username, but then I didn't log in for a year. Finally started to get it. And then we decided in 2 weekends, like what if there were an award an award system to recognize the best producers of content in various categories. So we built this thing, the Shorty Awards, in 2 weekends. Anybody could nominate anyone for any category. And when we launched this, we said we'd have an award ceremony, but we thought it'd be like 20 people in a bar in Brooklyn. Ended up taking off, was top trending item on Twitter for 2 months. Got written up in the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal. We were kind of scrambling to figure out what to do. Ended up being we got a venue that could hold 300 people. We ended up selling out and turning away another 100. And it really just worked well for us. We made money off it by signing up sponsors. You can see here on the right-hand side, the Knight Foundation was our major sponsor. We pulled in their tweets and we had our category sponsor. So our goal was really to make money off of this before Twitter could. So in a way, this is kind of a very traditional media business, running an event, selling sponsors, but totally built through the Twitter world. And we ended up even getting CNN anchor Rick Sanchez to host it, MC Hammer to come, Rick Sanchez to do Shaquille O'Neal to do a video for it. And then from here, we were kind of thinking, we were going on this theme of like, okay, who are the people who are really good at twittering about given topics? So now we've been busy launching these various one-line sites. So the first one we launched 6 weeks ago called Muckrack. It lets you filter down journalists. So if you're into, the Financial Times, you click on there, and then you see a feed of everyone from the Financial Times twittering. So it makes it really easy to get to people you know and trust. It's got its own trending topics. And then we just kind of templatize this. So every single week, we've been launching a new site. This is same thing for designers, same thing for programmers. We got developers without the vowels. Same thing for venture capitalists. So if you're about to go pitch somebody, you can look up all their everyone's tweets. So if they spent the last night or that morning at the dentist, you might not want to pitch them that day. You should probably reschedule. Then we launched this one, Bottomless Beer. We found all the breweries on Twitter. We also extract all the pictures that people post. So here you can get lots of photos of beer, even though we don't have any here tonight. And that's pretty much what we're doing. We got some. Phil sent out his. He brought a couple StockTwits interns and sent them out for beer just before he got started. Here you go. So with that, I'm done. I want to let the panelists introduce themselves just really quick. I'll give an overview, and then you guys can go through. Ivan Kiergan, he started TipJoy. It's a one-line payment system. I believe they started before Twitter, but now a lot of it's happening through Twitter, which is really interesting. Phil Pearlman, one of the founders of StockTwits, which is now actually making money and enough money to buy beer, so it should be fun to listen to. And then Andrew Cortina, who is a founding developer with Bitly, a URL shortener on Twitter. So let's get going, guys.
Just a moment.
If you're done,
open my beer.
take your time.
Sorry, there really should be a beer for everybody. That'll be a feature request for the next one. Actually, if you go back to that tweet stream, you can see a little demo that I did via SMS where I paid StockTwits $5 for the beer. Just a quick tweet that said P $5 at StockTwits. And so what's going on in the background here is that I have my TipJoy account hooked in with my Twitter credentials, and it's essentially a payment system that can live on top of Twitter. And so I just sent the StockTwits account $5. So we started out, I guess, toward the end of, revenue on Twitter. That's the way to do it. Build up social capital and buy beer and things like that. We started out a while back, and we weren't initially on Twitter. And it was essentially an idea for a simple social payments. We thought that micropayments didn't work in the past because it was just too painful to go through the micropayments checkout process for something that might be 5 cents, 10 cents. And so people wouldn't do that. They wouldn't jump through those hoops. So simplicity was really the design goal initially for this payment engine. Also, we thought the digital content is a bit different in that it's very social and it's very important to have your friends see it, and the content needs to be out there on your social networks. So we designed a payment system for digital content. So it's not about fulfillment or a big shopping cart and checkout. It's about the simplest experience you could have. And so we started out with a one-click payment engine that was mainly for donations on blogs and other sites like that to support long-tail free content. I started the site because there's so much free stuff out there. I wanted to give back to it. And also we support micropayments, was another big part of it. So that one-click payment could be 10 cents if you want it to be. And then, after a few other people did it, we decided, hey, we should hook in this payment engine to Twitter. And that's really taken off since then. And so this is like a typical thing for startups, I guess, where you kind of tack in the wind and you really start focusing on that. I guess it's the explosive growth of Twitter that's really done it. But I think it also is because Twitter encapsulates a lot of our ideals. So when I made that payment to StockTwits, every one of my followers saw that. And it's like a really strong endorsement, at least for the quality of the beer, if not for the service I might be paying for. So we think which is beer, right? So purchasing beer online, is that legal in New York? I don't know. But the point is that it's sort of like a different way to advertise for a service, where your users are paying for something on top of Twitter, and that is like a social endorsement. And we think that kind of social capital that just is so ingrained in Twitter with links and hashtags and everything like that. It's also so much social capital that gets built up that's really a good fit for our company, because that's really where we think the micropayments play in the future will be. And we think a lot of content is going to live on top of Twitter, where you already see a lot of musicians that are tweeting about concerts or a new album to get, and it'll just be a quick step away before you can sell an album on Twitter. And maybe you get a DM to a download link, or you can log into a site with your Twitter credentials and get access to a piece of content. I think what's going to be really explosive is Twitter paid services. So it's really interesting to compare, I guess, the platform with Facebook, how early on, it's a few years old, but only now it's starting to get payments. And with Twitter, it's sort of like we have this payment solution, and the platform is really only developing now. So it's a really exciting and explosive space. So that's TipJoy. Check it out. We also have an API, so for app developers out there, you can sort of initiate tweet payments and do all sorts of things with people's accounts.
I have a question. So what service is processing the payments, and does it cost you money to process even the micropayments?
Right, so the way the money moves is that you fill up your TipJoy account with a large payment. It might be $5, $10, and then a TipJoy payment is from one TipJoy account to another, which is really just a database transaction. It doesn't move money between banks. And then as you accumulate funds, you cash out in another batch payment. And so the overhead of the processing is only on that cash in and cash out, which might be the typical 30 cents plus 3%, but then that same percentage overhead will be the same for the small payment. So for a $10 cash in, it might be 10% overhead, which means that's on a penny payment, it will then be 10% earmarked as overhead. And then that's the way, it's not like a huge percentage. So with PayPal, for example, if you were to pay 40 cents, PayPal would take 30 cents. And that's bullshit. So we kind of get around that.
So is PayPal looking at you and saying, gee, how do these guys trump our possibilities on Twitter?
It's actually interesting because I think we're a layer above current payment processors, and so we're looking for strategic partnerships with all the major payment processors you could think of, and talking to them because they're not really very innovative as far as social networks. And so we might replace, get a deep API into their services to move the money from point A to point B for the batch cash-in, or even for the micropayments, it depends. And so that's like a natural fit, I think, between our businesses. So I don't think I really see Amazon or PayPal or whoever else out there as competitors so much as potential partners.
So if I tip somebody 20 cents, and you're taking how much of the cut?
So we take a cut on cash out, not between each transaction. So if I were to give somebody a penny, it's not like we take a cut of that. But if somebody accumulates 1 million pennies and wants to cash out, we would take 3%.
Okay, and if I'm building an API or a community or a site that's using your APIs, how do I get paid for that?
So you would give yourself a cut somehow. We have an affiliate system. We're just about to expose that to the API. You could also just take the money to your own account and then give out only a percentage to somebody else, so that you can take 30% if you want to, just by giving 100% to yourself and 70% out to the affiliate.
Just one more question for now, if anyone has it, and then we want to move on. But who has? Can we bid so that whoever tips Joy the most to us gets to ask the question? All right, one more.
Not real time.
Do front row here.
Oh yes. How would you address the security issue?
So there's, I would say the biggest security hole in Twitter and most sites and TipJoy is phishing. So that if somebody gets access to your account, you can make a payment. That's not so much of a problem as it is in TipJoy as it might be in another payment service, because the cash out stage is heavily audited. And that means that so I mentioned that payments are all between TipJoy accounts, not between banks. So the stage where the money leaves and goes to another bank where we can't have access to it anymore, that's heavily audited. And so somebody could tweet a payment of $1,000 from your Tiptree account, but then they can't cash it out because it would be obviously fraud. Right? Also, another point is that the social graph is so useful to find fraud. We have a growing amount of fraud, and we're squelching it quickly because it's so obvious when somebody's not a real Twitter user because he knows so much about them because of their social network.
And just real quickly, since this is the ultralight startup forum, you know, payment system, it sounds really expensive. I mean, PayPal took millions and millions of dollars before they got profitable. How much did you guys need to get, you know, broadly?
We had a, sub-$1 million Series A, small syndicate Series A, and, we're growing. We're going to be profitable, I think, within maybe not the end of this year, maybe beginning of next year.
When you got the Series A, was it already working and up and running, or was it prototype?
Yeah, so we were funded by Y Combinator, so that means we started working in earnest in like November, or I guess really end of December of 2007, and then launched in February. So it's like 2 months. And really, we were built on top of PayPal at that point, so we didn't have to repeat their work. And they're all these other services. I think leveraging other people's work is great, and open source and all that.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a theme on this conference. You're leveraging both Twitter's hard work and PayPal's hard work and bringing it together. So Phil, StockTwits.
StockTwits is a social finance site built on top of Twitter, and just to give you a little bit about the history of it. About 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago, Howard Lindzen sent me an email, and at the time I was director of a hedge fund, and he also was running a hedge fund, and he sent me an email just saying, you got to get on Twitter, and here's the link, sign up, and just start talking about stocks. And so I went and signed up, and there was a small group of people who were talking about stocks who were extremely knowledgeable, and many of them were professionals or successful. And it became a nice little community pretty early on, but very small. And so there was one guy there named Sard Macbeth, who is a brilliant currency trader and has been involved with internet technology, computers for a long time, and who was following Howard on his blog, built just a little. Sort of just added a little bit more structure to Twitter, so that made it a little bit easier to follow everybody who was sort of talking about stocks or markets, and then added a tagging system, a very simple, elegant tagging system, which is $. So if you put a $sign in front of a stock symbol like $AMZN, then we would pick up, the stream would pick up that tweet, and at that time, that was I guess a year ago or so, and it began to pick up. So a lot of people sort of came to the site and started sharing information and tweeting, and then we got a little money as well, a little bit at about I think October, middle of last year. And in October launched sort of a little bit of a nicer site that streams and is a little bit better organized. So we added even a little bit more information on top of that. And what we're finding is that a lot of people are showing up, and as Twitter is growing extremely quickly, the amount of conversation about markets is increasing dramatically. And so it's not really just about stocks or U.S. stocks anymore. We're also there's also a reaching sort of critical mass on talk about futures and currency and international stock. We just added a couple of the European exchanges and the Canadian exchange. And so what you really find is people talking in real time in very concise. Obviously we have to keep it short. It's very concise measures, and it's become quite an efficient communication tool. And especially during the trading day, we're getting more than 10 tweets a minute. So that stream is really. Did you want to put that?
Yeah, I was just showing it out.
Okay, it's a little slower now at this time. But you know what? Actually, if you go up to all where it says all, and just click on that. Did you just load it? Oh yeah, go down to charts, because we just added that today. And so we also started this other site called Chartly, which is sort of like TwitPic, but really focused only on only on charts. So people who do technical analysis really, so you can very, very simply load your chart and show, and this is one guy who's a regular on the site, and he can load the charts. It's very well organized. So we just started that stream today. So we're starting to get so much traffic of just people using the Chartly that we decided to dedicate a whole stream to it. And what we're really finding is as we're growing, there's more and more sort of specification. People who trade options, people who are longer term traders, people who are more interested in global macro issues. And we're trying to really, filtering is really going to be a critical aspect of this.
Great. And let's see, so just tell us, what's interesting to me about StockTwits is that when you guys started, I think the whole site was just built on Tumblr. I mean, this thing was like, this site looks like it took a lot to build, but the
Right.
first iteration was kind of wafer thin, right?
Super primitive, relative, and Soren was just ingenious at that point. It was just really, it was ridiculously simple if you look at it, and built on Tumblr, and it didn't really take that much more than that to get the spirit of it across. And now I don't think with all the volume that's sort of coming through now, I don't think we'd be able to support that. But at the time, it was Twitter was a much smaller site.
And you guys have some premium products?
Right. So we're we were actually talking about this today, that when when eBay was a new company, there were businesses sprouting up all around eBay. So there were these people who are becoming sellers on eBay, and it was a more efficient market than what existed, and they were making money doing it. But as that market became saturated and everybody became very popular, it became more difficult to make money. And so I think that the lesson there is that there's no, that Twitter is not going to be your end-all platform, even though it's growing like mad, and even though you might have a really cool app, that's not going to be your money-making secret. And the finance, the social finance vertical is really has more tiers on it than just microblogging. So there's longer form. And so we developed, so
this is like this is like competition to TheStreet.com, which has been doing it for 10 years.
Right.
And you're using Twitter to market it.
Right, and so exactly. So Twitter becomes lead generation.
Yeah.
StockTwits becomes lead generation.
So like ballpark,
because
how
we have a
many-
lot of people there, and we don't have to advertise.
And so ballpark, how many subscribers are there now to the paid product?
Over 600, and so it's been about a month.
And how much is it?
And we're launching another product tomorrow, and it's $60 a month. So
Okay.
finance is a good vertical because people are willing to pay for good, actionable information.
Any of you guys do that math?
36,000. 36,000 monthly if I get that right.
That's pretty good, right? Get started? All right, and let's get to Bitly.
So Bitly is a URL shortener. It's a BetaWorks company. We actually didn't start it as even a website. It was an API that we used internally to shorten links to content for some of our other services and publish them to Twitter. And
I'll do one right now.
yeah. Because we like to know all about all the things that we're doing, and we want to know how well everything's performing, we added stats to it, to each link, that show you how many people have clicked on every short URL that gets shared on Twitter.
I don't know how to copy and paste on that.
So, like you can see down here next to each of these links in the history here that there's a number of clicks next to each of them. And we really like this, worked well for us internally, so we opened it up as an API for anyone to use. And people liked it so much that it sort of took over and became its own product very quickly. And it was a tool we used with another site that we built called Switch-a-Bit, which was a way to route information between Twitter and Facebook and all these other different publishing places. But Bitly grew so quickly that we just shifted our attention to that to keep up with the growth. And as we've grown, we've been adding more and more different features to it. One of the things that we added this winter was real-time statistics. Initially, when we started, you could see the number of clicks that you got on every link that you shared on Twitter at the end of each day. But people, that wasn't enough to satisfy people, and people kept asking, we want the stats faster and faster, and we were wondering, like, all right, what's a short enough window to give people the stats that they want? And Twitter itself is sort of this close to real-time, near real-time publishing hub, and we eventually, we were thinking about 30-minute windows for stats, and eventually just said, to hell with it, we'll just try to do it real time, and we built a pretty robust way to do that. So now, if you're a publisher sharing links to your blog or a product or something you're marketing, a movie or anything really, on Twitter, you might use Bitly so you can see how many people click on it and track if someone else retweets you and shares the same link, they may give a bump to the number of clicks that you're getting. Yeah, that's the product. We don't
And
make
give
any
us a
money.
sense of how many URLs have you shortened? So this is just like tiny URL, but gives you stats. How many have you done?
We shorten millions a day. I don't know how many there are
Okay. And tell me, I know, Cortinas, actually, you're an engineer there.
Yeah.
But it's kind of interesting because whenever I don't know if any of you have ever built businesses that involve doing real-time metrics, but it's just really hard at scale. So tell us a little about, kind of the capital requirements, like getting it going. Is it really expensive? Like, what's it like to scale something like this?
I mean, to build a URL shortener, there's probably open source code that you could find and get up and running in a matter of minutes. But to build something that shortens millions of URLs a day takes a lot of work, and people, the team that I work with is far superior to me. They're all really smart guys that make everything happen in the background in real time. But we have all sorts of, custom machines and custom data stores. We quickly exceed the limits of relational databases. And
What's the revenue model for Bitly?
we don't have a revenue model. We're just trying to provide a service that people like, and obviously people that are marketing something want stats about the
What's the
efficacy of
secret revenue model you use to raise money? I know you have a revenue model because you raised money.
Incubated and paid work.
Yeah, I mean,
Are you the first URL shortener to raise money? I mean, there's like 100 of them out there. I have a whole list of them somewhere.
possibly. I don't think TinyURL ever raised money.
How does TinyURL make money?
You're going to charge
TinyURL
for tapping that.
has ads on their site, I think.
So this is now so you got the default shortener for Twitter?
Yes.
Okay. So before they chose you guys, did they go through any kind of rigorous, hey, can you handle the traffic?
Yeah, they threw load at our servers, and they had a set of specifications that we had to meet, and there were a lot of requirements around preventing spam, which is something that we do a lot to control. So we have all these automated tools for checking about 4 different blacklisting services, and also tools for people to flag spam URLs. And
Did the load increase exponentially when you became?
when we switched to Twitter,
Yes.
we were already growing exponentially, and then Twitter doubled our traffic. So I mean, it was a boost, but we already had like a lot of traffic from other places as well. So.
Bitly was the default in a few major Twitter clients before
Right.
Twitter signed on.
So that's an important point.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
clients drive a lot of it. We're going to take one more question, and we're going to broaden things out. So I think you had your hand up first in the green.
Do you have a vanity URL business model? Vanity license plates, vanity URL.
Yeah, I mean, we could do that. I don't know how much money that would make, but I'm sure the vain people would pay for that.
We're going to come back now for more questions. First, I think we have one more beer left.
Yeah.
Is that right?
We wrap it
So you can take it out. Yeah, what we're going to do is we're going to leave the Twitter stream running during the questions. Whoever has like the first like really funny like laugh out loud tweet will get the last beer. So now I want to open up to everybody to ask all questions, but before I do, I Twittered earlier today asking for questions for this panel. I got one question back that the person insisted I ask. So I'm going to ask the question, not from me, but crowdsourced from Twitter, and then we're going to open it up. So the question I got was, you know, unlike the web itself or even RSS, it's really not, it's not a platform or it's not a standard Twitter, you know, everything we're investing in, hopefully making money off of an hour later, you know, kind of placing our businesses on. It's just a company. So, you know, if Ev gets hit by a bus, if they run out of money, God knows what happens, you know, so Twitter.com just goes down. You know, what do we all do?
Well, I think Tipjoy's larger play, I'll start, you can jump in whenever, sorry, is to be the micropayments wallet across the internet. And so far, Twitter is the most open platform. It's been the easiest. Also, if a company is growing 100% a month, and some say more, then that's good, and you should ride that. So if you can stop, then that's fine if you have a way out, but really it's such a small risk given the growth of the platform. I'd also say Twitter is much more valuable if it's a protocol, and they know that, and so they're going to go towards that route. So it's much less risk if they're trying to go for the even bigger play of the social network.
Yeah.
Well, we talked about Twitter risk very early on while we were developing, you know, through the development, the evolution of the company. And I think it's a great point. I think it's just bottom line, it's a great point. I mean, they could get bought out by a company who is not so friendly to others developing on top of it, or something could come along that's just much better. So we built into our business model very quickly to utilize Twitter as much as we can and to continue to do that, but to also build revenue streams and businesses that were not dependent. And so, you know, with our premium products, and we're also building a product called StockTwits Premium that will have streaming features that will not be dependent on Twitter. So we're taking that very seriously, and if you're starting a business in that regard, you know, in this area, and you're fully dependent, we're spreading it out.
Yeah, I think that, as these guys say, it would be foolish to base a business solely on Twitter, but I think that Twitter has sort of proved that something, if not Twitter, something like Twitter is going to be around, and it's fairly easy to build a service that is modeled, that depends on something like Twitter, so I wouldn't have any worries about doing that.
Okay, great. So let's open it up. Questions? Yeah.
I have a question, and I apologize because I can't hear a lot of people back here. I think, are you the gentleman that monetized your Twitter to be $1 for every tweet?
I'm the one that made that up. Yeah.
Oh, you made it up. Oh, sorry.
Oh yeah, yeah. If anyone's going to hear in the back, that's not real. Don't tweet as though it is and cause the Twitter guys any more worries.
Genius. It's genius.
But we do have your $1 up here waiting for you.
You over at the top.
That's how those things get started.
Oh yeah. Anything good? Anything beer worthy? It's advanced. Yeah. I might get out of beer for that.
So who is making money on Twitter right now?
There's a company actually that does Twitter background images. They make money. I think there's a lot of service-based companies around Twitter.
A lot of the services that are trying to get users right now aren't charging, but they can, and they're closed, so there's a lot of value add there. I mean, Twitter is such a...
Stand up, the whole panel.
Sorry.
We can't hear you back here.
So Twitter is growing really fast, so people trying to make a play to get as many users as possible if you're able to follow that. So a lot of services are starting, like TweetDeck is good because you can follow so many people. And so just managing your Twitter stream is going to be something that a lot of people are going to try to monetize. And already there's services that do it, they don't charge because they want to get more users. There's going to be premium features on all of those, so just wait for that.
On TweetDeck and what's the phone? Is that what you're saying? Selling software?
So the clients certainly, but specialized verticals like customer relation management is like an obvious one where all these companies are on Twitter and they're like 10 companies that are trying to let other companies manage their Twitter user base. Just an obvious example.
Do you have an example of one in particular that you know is making money?
Well, CoTweet is in private beta and they're not charging, so like they're trying to build up the system, but I'm sure they're gonna have a premium service soon.
The iPhone apps are all making money.
Can you speak up?
There's a lot of iPhone apps making money right now. They're just better clients than the Twitter web client.
Do you know one in particular that's making money? Because I got one to three.
I mean, Tweety makes lots of money, I think. Any app in iTunes that is not free is making money.
Raise your hand if you've paid for a Twitter client.
I didn't. Wow.
I've actually sold clients that we're ghost touring for, that we, for $500 will guarantee you a certain number of guaranteed followers every month. I mean, I know that's kind of, honestly, I think kind of like Twitter boring. So it's not great, but we're definitely making money. I mean, we're definitely, I've got, they're paying us to ghost Twitter, which is
500 a month gets you how many tweets?
2,000. No, I'm sorry, 2,000 guaranteed followers a month, but the 500 would probably cover, I can't even tell you off the top of my head, but yeah.
So they paid 500 to add 2,000
followers. Actually, let's see, $50, $10.
Do you do that by auto following and then hoping to follow back?
Excuse me, 10 a week, $50. Yeah, but they're highly targeted, keyword targeted. So, for instance, I have a PhD selling his book. So there are tweets that he is sending out that pertain to that particular keyword. So he's like,
Is it quality followers?
Keyword targeted followers, yes.
Can I just give another example of how to make money? Twitter Analyzer is a company, I don't know when they started, but I just found them today. And Twitter Analyzer are charging people to be a high profile on their website. They haven't launched it yet, but apparently they're launching it in 2 weeks from now. So everybody says they want to be the high profile on the Twitter, when you sign up for an account. So that's what Twitter Analyzer are charging money for.
I think TwitterMe is doing the same thing, a little bit differently. That's Twitter.me. I think they got some kind of legal battle with Twitter over the name, but all those apps, they all have the same name, and by the way, that sucks. You should try to name it something that you're going to remember as opposed to something that's based on Twitter. Bitly's a good one.
I don't know if I should mention this, but there's a website out there that's charging like a lot of money to get a lot of followers. And
what's the website?
I don't know. I don't remember what it is, but I just remember like they charge you like.
Yeah, so there's a spam scheme, all right?
I don't know what it is, but
So it's a really, really bad part of Twitter, so let's just call it out right now, right? You follow 10,000 people, 3,000 people follow you back, and then you have 3,000 followers. But that's spam, so don't pay for that.
So why is it good to have a lot of followers? I mean, presumably there must be a way to convert that, right? What is that way?
Well, if you post a link to some affiliate site and you get money for each link you post, if you have 20,000 followers, 3,000 click the link every time, then you make money. But that's totally spam. So this should be above board conversation about apps that add value and something people want. Just say it, my opinion.
This is the SEO panel, ULS and Sam.
Yeah, SEO, Twitter, might talk about that a lot. Yeah.
More questions? Yeah.
With stock tweets, how did you get or convince people to start doing the dollar sign tagging imaging? Because I mean, you mentioned that filtering is going to become really important, but a big key of filtering is getting at a table, at least asking the community to do it. So, can you talk a little bit more about how that evolved?
Well, I guess you could say there's social engineering involved with that. You're trying to get people to behave in a certain way. But it's not really, it wasn't really a huge amount of convincing because people were interested and wanted to be there and wanted to have this conversation. So it was more about learning how to do it rather than convincing anybody how to do it. So it's a new medium, and there's a learning curve, and so some people don't understand it. So we have like a little help, you know, on the website that explains it pretty clearly. Still have some problems with it, but people are catching on pretty quickly, and also people see the stream. I guess there's some conformity aspect to it too, because people see other people doing it. So if I'm, you know, on Twitter and I'm interested in stocks, but I'm not even on StockTwits yet, but I'm following 20 other people that I know are interested in stocks and they're talking about it and they're using the $, then I would be more likely to do that too. So that's what we're finding. So we're finding some people get on. What I do a lot is I watch a lot of people who sign up and who are trying to tweet to the stream who can't and who aren't getting it right will like at StockTwits, and then we see that, and then we reach out to them. So it hasn't been like a convincing thing. It's been more of a learning, educational aspect.
Question there?
Phil, what's the advantage of using social tools to trade on as opposed to just more, advanced risk tools?
Well, you know, my intern Kylie just informed me that I need to speak up and say that novice traders are making money following pro traders. So I think that you know, thanks for the softball question, but I think there's a lot of that going on. And the group, we were kind of lucky because I think early adopters of Twitter are a more highly educated and higher socioeconomic status group than the early adopters of MySpace or the early adopters of Facebook. So you had a pretty sharp crowd there very early on. And so when the original StockTwits group was really only like 60 or 100 people, there were some pros in there. And as people came on, you know, the next step, you know, the next stage early adopters, they were maybe a little less experienced, or also some very experienced traders started following very closely. So the guys who are really good at it have huge following now on Twitter, you know, thousands.
Andrew, it's up to you if you want to give away that beer.
Can you blow up
That's a good one. That's definitely
That's
got to step forward.
That's got to be one.
Yeah. This well.
Just for Yvonne, when you guys launched TipJoy, did you open up knowing that, or thinking, because it was for digital distribution and all that, charities are huge using TipJoy now. Did you guys launch under that premise, or is that like you realize it after a while? Damn, charities are moving.
So we were really surprised by the uptake of charities, and most of the Twitter growth up to recently has been on charities. We've only recently opened an API that makes it so you can sell things. So you can, for example, get transaction data. Nice. Did you answer?
She wanted a date back there. I guess that's my answer.
So the charity aspect is really, really surprising. And so Twitter and charities go hand in hand. I think a lot of it has to do with charities really kind of almost being behind the curve a bit on social media. So, there's causes and other things like that, but a lot of the bigger firms don't really engage in social networks. And for a younger generation, that's where all the eyeballs are. So I think a lot of charities are realizing we need to go where the people are. And so there's great aspects to social networks, Facebook and all these, they're very social, obviously, like your friends can tell other friends about some cause they care about. It's also very casual, so a credit system on Facebook or Twitter on, TipJoy on Twitter, the casual giving is a really important aspect of it. But I think we'll see that as the sort of the Twitter marketplace grows, it's going to go beyond just charities. So I hope the API kind of powers that. But I think the charity aspect is always going to be core to Twitter.
In Twestival in specific, did you guys receive the lion's share? Were the donations driven through TipJoy? I know they used.
So the Twestival was a global meetup in like 200 cities or so, and it was all about raising awareness about a particular cause. In this case, it was for Charity Water, which builds clean water wells in Africa, sustainable clean water wells. Great cause, and the folks at Twitter love that charity, so it was a big kind of. I think they're a featured user right now, for example. So there's a very good synergy there. And TipJoy was used for donations, and we had widgets that went on their site, and also you could do it over Twitter. I think the majority of money was through ticket sales. I mean, when you're asking for $2 or $5 in a widget, and you're asking for 20 or 50 on a ticket sales, you'll find the default price matters a lot, and people are just going to do that. We found the median price for almost every single campaign is just whatever people ask for. They typically ask for a small amount of money, but the average is actually much higher. So there's an interesting effect, I think, where the brunt of people give a tiny amount of money, but the average is much larger because the tiny donations by a lot of people build a lot of social capital, and that will bring the larger donors to your site. That's sort of like our theory on how charities work on Twitter.
Yes.
So have the Democratic and Republican parties started notifying you in advance of the 2010 congressional elections?
Notifying us about regulations?
Well, looking, trying to find out how they can start using them.
Yeah, so we're going to be...
If I was working for a politician or as part of the party, this could be very interesting, particularly given what we saw happen with Obama.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to add a barrier just because of regulations to say, are you a citizen? Because there's some rules about that. So despite Twitter being, I think, a large chunk of it is international, if you're not a U.S. citizen, you can't give to the Obama campaign. You can just by saying you're a citizen, and that, I'm sure, happened quite a bit. But we're actually going to be speaking to a great group of people, and we're going to try to do some kind of live, real-time donation. So one thing that I haven't mentioned is that because we're on Twitter, it's like a SMS-based payment engine. So from my phone right now, despite being an iPhone, if I only had SMS, I could tweet a payment. So I think that kind of live, on location, many people tweeting a lot of money to some big event, and everyone in their follower stream seeing that, I think that's going to be really powerful. I think that, like,
you guys had a campaign fundraiser.
Yeah, you go to like a big, charity concert or something like that. Bruce Springsteen is saying, "Vote for Obama." Oh, by the way, tweet this, and they'll give $2 or something like that. I think that's totally going to work.
Great. Yeah, back there.
Sir, can you add to a machine or something like tweet for Canada? I heard you do that in Finland already with.
Yeah, so there are a lot of payment engines that are built on top of cell phones, and this is really much more popular in Asia and Europe. And I don't know quite why it hasn't taken off here. I think there's a bit of cultural issues there. But essentially, in a lot of other countries, I don't know if you're familiar, you can pay for something at a store or at a gas station just with your phone. Oftentimes SMS-based. People don't really talk about the carriers taking a huge chunk of that. So they sometimes take like 50%. So actually, we consider our play on Twitter to be an awesome sort of disintermediator, I guess you could say, because we operate on Twitter, which is its own namespace, and also the overhead is much, much smaller. So that because Twitter is on SMS, TipJoy is on SMS, and that means we have a mobile payment strategy that is far, far cheaper than any other competition.
Yeah, right here.
Are there any other third-party sites you've seen who've done a really innovative or great way of using Twitter to drive traffic to their content sites?
One just recently, I think, was that Blame Drew's Cancer, something like that. There's a new one every day. So this guy on the web, pretty popular, has cancer, and he wants everyone to blame all their problems on his cancer. And so he did a hashtag. What's the hashtag? Anybody know?
That's what it is.
Blame. Yeah, that's it. So you can search for that, I guess. And so essentially they're driving a lot of attention to this cause. And they want somebody to match $1 per tweet, but it's getting a huge amount of attention.
Any mainstream sites kind of figured that out yet that you've seen?
Well, I know Wired does it really. So you're talking about like content sites just want more traffic.
Yeah, you can just put an RSS feed and have it go in. That's
yeah, well, everyone's doing. I mean, everyone I've seen is doing their RSS feed to a Twitter account. You can do that with Twitter feed. I think the best implementation I saw is Wired, where the official Wired account, they rotate between different journalists. So every week, like a different journalist will take it over and really go at it. So they've gotten like 50,000 followers and growing quickly because it's actually compelling. I think the one thing that I see is pretty common is you kind of start with pulling in the RSS feed, but people are used to kind of content that was written for this medium as opposed to repurposed content. But it's worth experimenting both ways. It's so cheap to start.
It's very early. I just wanted to it's very early in that, and so there's so many companies that are getting on Twitter that are attempting to drive traffic and having different levels of success. And so there's certain, I think there's certain dynamics of how you behave on Twitter that will determine your success. So if you're just, you know, really spammy and, you know, people will tune you out over time, it might work, you might have short-term success, but, you know, my theory would be that as people, as the learning curve, as the slope of the learning curve decreases, then people will begin tuning out the spam more and more, and the quality will win out. So people who are putting great links in and driving people who are interested to good content will have an excellent, you know, bullhorn, and people who are just spamming will get less, you know, their followers that they're buying will become of less and less value over time.
I think that point you could stress again and again that it's really about community building, and for various causes, profit or not. And I'd like to hear more about the community and how, like, where people come from for StockTwits, like how you're growing the community and supporting it. And generally, I think there's no quick way to get people to your site. It's really about content and community, and which is sad because there's no easy way.
Totally.
Something that we've noticed actually with content, yeah, something we've seen that drives a lot of content is, or drives traffic to content is good headlines. So two of our most popular Bitly users are The Onion and some e-cards, and they write hilarious headlines, and they're constantly driving traffic in short bursts. They get more clicks like immediately after they post than most other people. So I think, you know, because Twitter is short form, it just makes the it's basically only a headline, right? So to have a good headline strategy is even more important.
Great. Hey Graham, do you know how much time we have left?
Right here. Probably about a quarter after or 20 after. 10.
It's 10 after.
Okay, so another 10 minutes maybe?
Okay, so let's do 10 more minutes. Just so you guys know, I'm going to try to call on, give everybody a chance to try to call on anybody twice. So let's go. Who hasn't asked a question before? Yeah.
Just a quick question. Have you guys seen any online education companies using Twitter?
I think YouTube pushes educational content.
Only.
What?
Only educational content, right?
Yeah, they do a lot of it. They're probably the best online education company, right? YouTube.
How are they using Twitter?
They're just syndicating valuable educational content and driving traffic to videos.
Can't you just tweet what you upload? It's right there on the bottom. You can tweet whatever you upload. So that's how they do it.
So actually, Greg, for the sites that you're doing, Uprack and some of those like that, two questions. Number one, how are you authenticating the users? Because, you know, Kanye West, for instance, came out and said, I'm not really on Twitter, and, you know, it seems like you're doing something very interesting. And how do you actually monetize the authenticated users for all your sites?
So we authenticate the users. We actually have human editors, similar to like About.com. Our premise is that, you know, once you get the person in the system, then you're just aggregating their tweets and automatically making sense of their tweets. So it's not hard to manage day to day, but just to kind of look the person over once. It's a human editor, and they have various different means. In terms of monetizing, it's only 6 weeks old. So far we haven't, but we already have a bunch of discussions with brands to sponsor these sites for their verticals. So again, you know, fairly old-fashioned method of making money. Yeah.
Just a question for you. Two quick questions. One, how are you handling interest on all the money that sits in these pools?
We get that.
You get that, okay. That's good. And then,
So like an insurance firm making money on...
Yeah, I mean, float is small compared to the 3% cut.
Of course, yeah.
It's also micropayments, so the balances in the account are not the same as your bank account. So you might have $10 in your account, not 1,000.
Sure. The other question I had was, you said this tip was sort of inspired out of like wanting to give back to content publishers. How are you guys trying to re-embrace, or are you trying to re-embrace content publishers?
I think there's been a lot of talk about, you know, micropayments for newspapers, and I think that's sort of like a very urgent, pressing issue of content that needs to get more money to sustain itself. And I think for that to work, they, one, can't totally gate content. Gating means you have to pay to see it. I think they have to incentivize sharing. So what I'd like to see is somebody use our API, you can build an app on this, sell it to the New York Times, where perhaps maybe in the first day, maybe in the first hour, article is published. And it's just an example for newspapers. You may need to pay a micropayment to see it. That micropayment would be broadcast using TipJoy on Twitter, so it draws more people to see it. Maybe there's an affiliate link right there that tracks how many people have clicked that, and you get the money back. So active people that are pushing these links out would actually get paid to do it. So like Louis Gray and other pro bloggers like that should be paid when they post a link, because they do it so avidly. So that the content wouldn't necessarily even be gated for them. But incentivizing to share is something you could do once you have a payment gateway, because you can just reduce the price, and eventually people might get paid for that. So eventually it's free, or the archives are paid, and then it's more open, because op-ed is less valuable the fewer people read it. So I think that's one great strategy for newspapers that would work really well, and I think you can bring that to other kinds of media as well.
Great. See in the back, you had your question, hand up for a while.
Yeah, my question was for StockTwits. Now that you guys are getting a lot more users, how do you stop people spamming links? Just because you're automatically picking them up using keywords.
Well, we work extremely hard at that every day, and we're just super vigilant. And
but are
we
the
have
links being picked up automatically, or are you clicking through manually each one to upload it into the stream?
What is that?
Are you selecting each link to go into the stream manually?
Do you moderate it?
We moderate it manually. And it's become a bigger job. We are getting pretty sophisticated in how we look at stuff, and we're also building some automation right now, which will make it a lot easier. But so far we've done it manually. Now it's starting to get out of hand because it's getting more popular. But we look at a lot.
On a message by message basis or a user? You ban the users in the system?
We block. Well, the design is kind of elegant because we just use Twitter to block malicious users.
So you find somebody spamming and you just block their ID?
You just block them as if any Twitter account can block somebody. We do the same exact thing.
We have another question now.
As your Twitter startups got more popular and important, was there a relationship with Twitter? Or
Great question.
the ecosystem?
So do you guys, as it took off, do you have a relationship with Twitter? Do you guys sign a deal?
We became the default for Twitter. So.
And before you became the default, was there any kind of deal with Twitter?
No, we had relationships with a lot of the Twitter clients as the default there, but certainly we have a much stronger relationship with Twitter itself now than we're the default there.
And how about you, Phil?
Yeah, we interact with them in when there are issues related to traffic flow or more technically based. I think that's the majority.
But there's no business deal with them?
No, I think Twitter is loving. I think they have so much growth that they're focused on keeping the lights on right now, and so if anybody's doing interesting things on top of using the API, then they're loving that because we're adding functionality. I think that's a positive thing.
Yeah, Twitter as a company is still very small for the size and growth of the service. So that point is just really important, that they had an API really early on and they love the API developer community. And so, we don't have any deal with them or anything like that, but we've talked to them a lot. They like what we're doing. They like what a lot of people are doing, and they often have people that are using the API, if they're in the neighborhood, stop by and say what they're doing, how, some ways that it could be easy. I think that was the most prominent question again and again, like how can we enhance the API or do something that will help you out. And there are various things, details, but they're always looking to make it easier for their API developer.
Yeah, we found the same thing where when we launched the Shorty Awards, we didn't tell them. I emailed Ev, the CEO, and he just wrote back, cool. And they ended up eventually getting involved with the Shorty Awards and sending in a video. Well, that was after it took off. So I think with Twitter, it's definitely like better ask forgiveness than permission. You just do it, and it's only worth talking to them if it works.
Don't spam them. They'll hate that.
But
they love it if you do something cool.
I think that's a great note to end on. Don't spam.
Don't spam.
Thanks a lot, guys.